Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us again for another episode of Leadership Conversation. My name is Lindholmen, and I'm so delighted to be with you today. And today I'm joined by the wonderful guest, Per-Olof Arnäs. Welcome, Per-Olof.
Thank you, and good morning.
Thank you for taking the time and being with us today. You have extensive experience from the logistics sector. You probably spent most of your life there, more than 40 years. You started in the late 80s, and you've been studying kind of logistics. You had a PhD in logistics from Chalmers University of Technology, and you also worked at the university both as a researcher and teacher, and also head of vice head of a department. But you also then had experience from the startup world with Einride. You've been there for a few years as a director of logistics and strategy. So now you're advising companies around digital transformation, or understanding and navigating, technology. And it's a pleasure to have you today. I'm just curious, looking at your journey, what made you kind of leave the academia and go with, a startup, and what did you learn in that transition?
I think my main driving force has always been frustration. I usually say that I've been frustrated since 1989. This is a picture of me. I framed it. I'm 20 years old, and I'm working extra in a transport company managing 5 tanker trucks. And in 1989, I was 20 years old. In 1989, that was like a full-time job. And it took an office full of paper to do it. You can see there are binders everywhere and paper everywhere in this office. No computers. Even though at home I had like a Commodore 64 computer, which was 4 or 5 years maybe old at the time, that computer. And I couldn't really understand why that technology was not everywhere in that office when I saw all the administration taking place. So that frustration, as a 20-year-old, you're not that experienced, of course, but I was frustrated, and then I started studying. So I'm a mechanical engineer. I started studies like a year after that picture was taken, something like that. And when I had the opportunity to start studying logistics in the third year, I went all in on that, and eventually became a PhD student. And then eventually left the university to start working in the transport industry. I was taking on coding, developing as a parallel sort of career back then. Started a company, and I realized that was also very fun. So I did that for 8 years, among other things, in the transport industry. Finished my PhD, and then went back as a teacher and lecturer at the university for 10 years. But then I became frustrated again because I was studying. My main field of research was the digital development in the logistics sector. That was sort of the broad strokes of it. And I realized that this development was not waiting for us researchers to tell them what to do. We were scrambling to sort of explain what the companies have already done. They were not relying on our knowledge to move the world forward. They were doing it. And then we studied how they did it. And we wrote papers on how they did it. So that the knowledge we wrote in our papers could be like 3 to 5 years old, even. And that was really frustrating for me, because I'm a bit more entrepreneurial than that. Even though I love academia and I love creating knowledge, which is the main sort of product of academia, creating and sort of keeping knowledge. So when I got the opportunity, I left university mid-COVID in 2021 to join Einride, which is a startup working, or a scale-up really, working on electric and autonomous trucks. So I was there for just over 3 years, and we went from 85 people to more than 500 people when I left in 3 years, which is crazy in itself. So
what did you? So it seems like frustrations are kind of a pattern, a motivator for you. When you feel frustrated about something, you kind of take ownership of that and do something. And it seems like you were frustrated that the knowledge in academia was already old, and you want to be on a cutting edge of technology, and that's why you joined Einride.
Yeah, I think if frustration is sort of the engine or the driving force, my motivation is to change the world, or to make stuff happen. If I see something that should be in a different way than it is, and if I have the power and the opportunity to sort of nudge it towards what I think it should be, I probably will try to do it.
Probably why. What did you learn on the journey with Einride?
I learned that 6 months is a really long time. It's an eternity. It's not a long time in academia. In academia, nothing happens in 6 months. I mean, you can have a meeting about having a meeting in 6 months. 6 months is like half a study year. So if you want to start a new course, for instance, at a university, it could take you 2 years if you're fast, until the first student starts taking the course that you envision today. Because of a lot of lock-ins when it comes to deadlines and bureaucracy and platforms that need registration, and they are open once a year for new data, things like that. So what I really enjoyed working in that fast-paced environment was that you could get an idea on Monday, and you can run with it on Tuesday, and you have your results on Friday. I mean, I've never seen speed like that before.
Wow. So you kind of like that environment. You like speed as well.
Yes, I do, and that's also a frustration, of course. I've recently been toying with like twin definitions of frustration. One is what I call negative frustration. This is when you get pushed in a direction you don't really want to go. Like, for instance, you at your workplace, you see that we're going to bring AI into everything, and I really don't understand what this means, and I'm not comfortable with it. I know how to do my job and things like that. That's negative frustration. That's not really helping either you or the company. But then you have the positive frustration, and I think that's the part of me that sees it as sort of an engine and a driving force. That's when you feel that you're getting held back. You want to run fast. Why can I not run faster? Why don't we already have this tool in our organization? Why can't we already do this? That's positive frustration. And since we're talking about leadership, that's one of the strongest motivators you can find, I think, in your organization. If you have coworkers who are positively frustrated, you can harness that in different ways if you're aware of it. So that's
one thing that
I'm thinking about a lot right now, actually. Yeah.
And I think it's a very good distinction between positive and negative frustration. One of the things that I sometimes joke about or use like an anecdote when we say, someone has to do something about it. And who's someone? I haven't met someone. Like, is it working on our team? Like, vi måste göra någonting. Okay, who is we and what is something? But it seems like if you can use that frustration from no one maybe taking ownership or taking a decision, and if you can turn that, okay, maybe I'm the one that I should be actually doing something about it, that becomes your positive frustration, right? You see that you could do something and you say, why not do something about it? And you turns it into a driving force, an engine, rather than leave that as a frustration that you then take home and have to go to the gym for 2 hours to take it out of your system, rather than use it for something more creative.
Yeah, and I think you need a level of confidence to also be able, or you need to come to an agreement with yourself that it's okay to ask forgiveness instead of permission sometimes. And you need the confidence in trying to do that, but you also need to have a confidence in your leaders, your own boss, that it's okay to do that. It's okay to try stuff. It's okay to evaluate frequently, it's okay to make mistakes because you win or you learn. So that's also a very important part of a mindset, which I think, I mean, I'm from Sweden. We have a very our leadership culture in Sweden, I think, is very soft, in a way that we encourage initiative from people. We encourage experimentation as a general rule. It's not very authoritative compared to a lot of other countries who have a way more authoritative view of a leader. They should know everything. They should have the answers. And if the leader doesn't tell me to do exactly one thing, I won't do it. And I've spoken with a friend who is now educating recruits. He works in the military, and that's a very different place from when I did my military service today. Then you had to, I mean, it was the cliche. They tell you to jump and you say how high. That was sort of the discipline they required back in the 1980s. But now they tell you why you need to jump. And they give you the reasons for why they tell you what to do, so that when something hits the fan during your mission, you can still complete it because you know the why. You don't know just what to do. And I think that that's a very important piece of advice, I think, to everyone, is that the more people know why, the better they will be able to perform if you give them the right tools.
Yeah, I really believe that. And so you say that even the military now, it's not top down anymore in Sweden, and it's more like more hands-off, more participative. So the leader focuses on the why, and then more or less allows the people, the individuals, to define the how they're going to do it.
Yeah, I think within reason. I mean, it's still a very rigid command structure, which is very much needed because they need to handle some very difficult situations, of course, and lead people through them. But when they are working with different leadership models like that, I think that's a sign that they're onto something.
Right. Yeah. And so how do you see these play out? So you've been in the academia, you've been also in the startup world, you advise companies. Like when you see kind of a gap or a breakage between strategy and implementation, where do you think that happens, and why is that happening? Like in your experience?
I think right now, when the hype is like supersonic when it comes to AI, we see it everywhere. Companies saying we are going to become an AI first organization. We are going to adopt AI. We need more AI. The CEO screams, "Where's my AI?" And they buy like ChatGPT accounts for all the employees. But then the leadership don't use it. The leadership keeps doing what they will, and they treat it like some new tool that they can give to their employees to work faster and more efficient. And they don't really realize that work is being disrupted. Work as we know it is under disruption, and it needs to start at the top. The leadership needs to become AI first. They need to start learning about technology, not only financials and management. They need to start learning about technology and the limitations and the possibilities with technology. They need to start to keep afloat of the news cycle, to know what's happening. They don't have to become AI experts, but they need to become at least AI literate in a way that they know what to expect from their organizations. Otherwise, it will be a huge disconnect, and it will only grow as the technology evolves.
You use the term AI first. What is your definition of an AI first company?
On a company level, it's really hard, because then you mix into then you start to mix in the services and the products that the company produces, and should we integrate AI into our product that we are building? Maybe we are making shovels. Should we have AI-enabled shovels in our company. I mean, that becomes a strategic decision, but an AI-first mindset for an individual or a team, that means that you have your first order of business when you're faced with something is not to say, I know how to do this. It's to prompt. It's to make sure, can I do this in another way? Can I use technology to my advantage here? Like, for instance, this is a real example. You have a task once a year, you get 2 massive Excel files, and you need to find the difference between them. You need to check one file against the other for differences, because they should be the same, but they come from 2 different systems, so there might be glitches. Normally, this will take you a few days to do that. Even though, I mean, Excel has been around for like 40 years, and there are functions in Excel to make this happen, but normally you don't know about these advanced functions. So you sort them according to whatever criteria, and then you start comparing. And if you have an AI-first mindset, the first thing you do is you upload both of these files into your AI tool of choice and say, okay, I want to compare these for differences. Can you please help me? And 20 seconds later, you get a file with the diffs in it. That's the AI-first approach to a problem like that. And it shouldn't even be a conscious thought. It should be the first thing you do. To take a problem that you already know how to solve, but nevertheless, let the AI take a crack at it and see what happens. So that's a hands-on sort of, not a formal definition, but an example showing what I mean.
So you mean this is more like a mindset rather than a structure that organizations should have?
Yeah.
And what actually, so the connection I make here is that when I work with leaders, when we talk about if they feel that they work too much or they are overworked, they have to work the weekends, one of the things we start talking about when we talk about delegation, the first question that you ask yourself there when you get a task to compare these files, it's similar to the same question that a leader gets a challenge on their table and now they have to make a decision, so the first thing they ask themselves usually is, how can I tackle this? What can I do about this?
Yeah.
The question we teach them to ask themselves is, who is the best person on my team or in our organization to tackle this? And now that question is still valid, but it might not be a person. It might be a tool.
Yeah.
It might be a system. So instead of how can I do or what can I do about this, is like who or what in our system has the best knowledge on this area or is best equipped to do that. Because the first thing is, if it's on my desk, it's mine. And I think that's where a challenge that I see right now is that we self-identify with our work. Like, okay, so if I give everything to AI, what's my work then? What should I be doing? And I think to some extent, we more or less hold on to things and all the, like you see this now self-checkout, checkouts in stores, almost every city, every store chain has some of these, and they are people that used to work as cashiers. And I was chatting with someone that said, well, I don't even know where to send my daughter for a summer kind of internship because they used to work at this, as a cashier at this store, but now they don't have cashiers anymore.
Yeah.
So we more or less have some definition of ourselves, of who we are, attached to the work we do. And I think to have that AI first mindset is to more or less to acknowledge that maybe that's not my job anymore. And there probably is more value added job for me to do if I can delegate this and use a tool.
Yeah. And I think one important sort of shift you need to sort of make a shift in your head, in your mind, is that many of the tasks that you routinely perform in any type of job, but especially if you have a desk job, of course. The desk jobs have not been under disruption seriously until now. but now they are. Yes, they have been. I mean, when the computer came along and replaced all the manual calculations and so on in the 1950s, 1960s, but we are seriously under disruption now. You even use the metaphor that the CEO has a desk. I mean, meaning you have a finite space where your information that you need to take into account when making a decision is in front of you. And the metaphor that we need to become comfortable with is not the metaphor of the desk. It's the metaphor of I have a system that has access to all my company data. It has access to all our communications. It has access to deep data about our competitors, about our partners, about the overall economy. And my job is to orchestrate an agent or maybe several agents to help me make the best and most informed decision I can make. So it's not about your gut feeling, but you need the experience. You need the experience in order to interpret the suggestions you get from these tools or from these agents or these AI models. And if we take away all the cashiers, I worked as a cashier when I was younger. I did a lot of sort of what we now call simple jobs when I was younger. Those are all part of my DNA and part of my experience. What if we take away all of those jobs and we take away all of those sort of formative tasks? What does experience look like in 15 years? That's a philosophical question that I see more and more being sort of discussed publicly. So if an organization starts automating every single task, who will be the expert in 10 years? That's a hard question. That's a hard question for leaders. Should we automate so much that we lose our DNA?
And that's a valid question. That's a very valid question. So what you're sharing that as a leader had to make this shift to actually think about having a system where the information sits, which they mostly already have. So the information is in some kind of system. So what I see is, so this is no different than if you had a case that you needed experts on. Would you go to one of these big four consulting companies and you would just hire an expert? Like if you would need someone to look at maybe your data, to look at your accounting, to look at your legal case, to look at that. This is no different than you having an AI agent doing that work for you. You've done it in the same way. So if you need to work with an external consultant or from one of these big four, you would have to gather that data, put it in a system, sharing with that expert, and then have that expert help you and kind of guide you. So now, more or less, what we're saying is it's the same mindset, but right now that knowledge, it's available inside of your systems. And it's not a different mindset than asking for help from an expert that could now be maybe a system that has, it can take you 80% of the task, and then you can actually have the external expert for the last 20% of the task, rather than you having to do, like, I'm just thinking about, doing the books for my company. It's something I don't like to do, but I can put a lot of work and prepare this very well for my accountant, and she does the final thing, or I can actually drop it to her. She puts it in a tool, and then the tool does it, and I don't have to spend that time there because the tool takes it to 80%. She's going to have to check it anyway to do it, to declare it. So it looks like the mindset is into thinking that right now this knowledge, it's available, and it's available in these different AI tools. What kind of knowledge we would need to have, like what kind of agents we would need to have, seems to be a strategic decision for a company. And what is then the role of the architect? So you mentioned that, or the conductor, right? So the leader's role is more to be an architect or a conductor of people and systems, because There is now organizations in Sweden, in Gothenburg, that offer AI employees for admin work.
Yeah.
Now, as a leader, you're going to have both human and non-human code employees or agents.
I've even heard that there are arguments to merging the HR and the IT departments because they are becoming the same thing. But one very, very important thing is to I mean, it's sort of a natural law. I mean, if something can be automated, it will become automated when the cost benefits are high enough. I mean, that's sort of universal law of economics. If you can cut costs and keep productivity, you should pursue that as a company to become more profitable. But this orchestrator, this conductor, you cannot automate that. Or if you could automate that process as well, the CEO's process as well, there will become a level above that with another architect and another orchestrator. Somewhere you need the validation, the ability to validate whatever your agents are delivering to you, even though if those agents are one of the consultancy firms, or if they are digital agents producing material that looks just as good as the ones you get from humans. You need to be able to distinguish it. You need your bullshit filter intact. And the paradox is that in order to get that, you need experience. You need some sort of formative experience. You need to make mistakes. You need to spend nights doing boring work, making mistakes or learning from them in order to be able to become a good leader. So I'm circling back to that argument. What does it take to become an expert in something?
Yeah, and this is, I completely agree, because you cannot distinguish between what's good and what's not good if you haven't been doing that. And this is one of the mistakes. I think we can actually go, down this rabbit hole for maybe hours if we are allowed to. But I have found that one of the mistakes we usually make is that we use AI in areas that we're not good at. So, for example, if I would use AI to ask, for example, investing advice, I don't have the knowledge to distinguish, is this a good advice or bad advice? Yeah. But if I ask AI to help me prepare for a coaching meeting, I can see, oh, that's a bad question. I shouldn't ask that question. Oh, this is, no, that's not good. You don't know the context. So I can actually distinguish between good and bad in that area because I have the expertise. But there will be areas where I don't have the expertise. And this is actually the challenge, because people use AI in areas where they don't have expertise and they cannot be the judge and they cannot be the architect because they don't know if this is good enough or not. And that's the challenge with it.
That's how one of the uses I use AI a lot. I have accounts on all the major services, and some of them are these sort of expensive pro accounts also. And I see them as capable interns. But it's eventually it's my decision to trust what they give me. And one method I use is I use maybe ChatGPT Pro to do extensive research because it's really, really good at that. It can spend hours doing research globally on stuff that's really complex, and I will get a really good material back, or it looks really good. Then I may be using Claude to fact check. So I have another intern from another service doing the fact checking of all the sources in the first one. And that will give me, if the first one is like at 80% or 85, 90%, I can reach at least 97, 98% when I've run it through the second layer. And that's when I look at it. I don't look at the material until I've sort of processed it. And that process might take a few hours to do, but it's not something I spend a few hours. It's the agent spending those hours. I do other stuff in the meantime, like having meetings like this one, while my agent is doing some real work. So it saves me tons of time, but I still need to make the final decision myself.
Yeah, but it speeds up the process of preparing for that decision, gathering the data and doing the research, things that would have taken you days or weeks.
Yeah.
So if let's move to kind of a different perspective. So if a company says we are going to adopt AI, what needs to happen internally in the company, in the way they make decision, in the way the organization works, for that to really work for them?
It's not buying co-pilots to all the employees. That's
It's
not the
not.
method. No, that's not the. I mean, giving employees access to AI, like Microsoft Copilot. I mean, that's the service most employees in desk jobs have. They have access to Copilot. Some of them have Claude, some of them have ChatGPT, some of them have Gemini, and so on. But they have access to one or more of these services. But they really don't know how to use them. They use them to create images of cats. They use them to give them cookie recipes, or to check that bottle of wine that you see that looks nice, but let's check it with ChatGPT to see is it a good wine or not. Things like that. So one of the mechanisms that I've been trying, I'm working with Chalmers University once more since I left the startup world. So like half my time I spend working on AI transformation in the administration of Chalmers University as a consultant. And one of the things we've tried there is study circles. I think that's a really, I don't know if it's a Swedish sort of phenomenon, but a Swede, they know exactly what I mean when I said a study circle. We put like 8 to 10 people in a room. They spend 3 sessions during 1 month, 2 to 2.5 hours each time. So it's one full working day in that room with 7 other people. We give them accounts for a service, and we chose Lovable, which is one of those Swedish new unicorns that will help you, will enable you to create a web service or an app by just prompting, give me a Tetris game, and it will create a Tetris game live that will work. So we give them this, and we show them how it works, and then they start building. And they start building like personal stuff or work stuff if it's allowed for the, you cannot upload any type of data, of course, in the service like that, but you can do a lot. You can do a lot with it. And after these 3 sessions, I'm currently evaluating this experiment, and I've interviewed all the participants. What happened was that, the objective was not to teach them Lovable. That was just a vessel. What we really wanted to do was to open a door in the head of the employee that cannot be closed. It's like a Pandora's box. And what happens is that after they took this course in like November, December last year, and now 3 months later, they have all become more advanced, and they have all changed how they work, and they are using and relying on AI tools way more than they did before they took this course. And they have become, if not AI first, so at least AI aware, and some of them AI first also. And they have become positively frustrated. So our challenge now is to harness that. Now, these people, that's why I say Pandora's box, because once you take this step, go across this threshold and realize what you can do with AI, you don't want to become held back. They want more advanced tools. They want to be able to create their own apps to use in the company. They need an infrastructure for that. They need to have the more expensive accounts on these services because they see potential in everyday life. And I think it's very cheap to do this. I mean, spend 1 working day during 1 month to do this. It's very little time. The cost for the Lovable service, not that great when it comes to the learning. And the cultural shift that it brings is maybe potentially disrupting in the organization.
So you're suggesting that, or what you've seen in this study circles, you see that if you give focus time to people to actually play with the tools, they will see the possibilities. And once they see the possibilities, it's going to be very difficult for them not to see them anymore and to be happy and content with not using AI or not using tools.
Yeah. It's irreversible. You cannot reverse that, and they will not be content comparing two Excel files manually ever again once they've seen this.
And you also had a bigger project, last summer when you had 24 students that built around 60 prototypes and many of them being implemented in real life.
That's a project that has been running for 2 years now, actually. We started in 2024 when I started working with the university, and we realized that we need to start exploring AI in the administration, not the research, not the teaching, the education, but the administration. There is this machinery keeping university running. You have the HR department, communications department, IT department, and so on. Roughly 600 people, and so we started looking into, okay, how can we sort of facilitate this cultural shift and becoming sort of an AI first or AI at least aware organization. And this is just 2024, ancient days when it comes to AI development. But we decided to do an experiment. So we hired 4 students during summer, master students. So they were quite knowledgeable already and quite fast. And we told them to explore a few different directions, like transcribe meetings, chatbot with all our policy documents, things like that. Again, this was 2 years ago. This is sort of extremely simple now, but it wasn't back then. And what they did was, during those 5 weeks during summer, was that they learned a lot. They ran extremely fast. They had a very good time doing it. And we realized that this explorative force, can be scaled. So we had very positive results from this. We decided, or the university leadership decided during the fall of 24, that we should scale it up during 2025. And it sort of took on a life of its own. It went a little bit out of hand, and we became 24 students instead of 4 during the next summer. And they were working on 6 different areas or domains. And each domain, we had like four different, we call them starting prompts. Run in this direction, explore this, explore this. Oops, sorry.
No, I can't. Oh. No, I don't hear you yet. All right. So as you're fixing your mic, one of the things that I heard you speak in our kind of pre-conversation, you were sharing that in order to kind of, for a change project to succeed, like AI, implementing AI in an organization, it more or less takes 90% cultural change and 10% technology, because technology is good enough already for the organizations actually to adopt it. But the biggest shift is actually cultural shift.
Yeah, sorry about that. Something happened with my audio here, and I got a lot of feedback. But
we can hear you very well now. We're loud and clear. So you were sharing. Yep. I just shared something we discussed before about the the 90-10 kind of split between, you know, what it takes 90% culture for a company to really implement AI, you know, in a way that it's helpful and successful, and 10% technology, because the technology, you say it's already mature enough, but the biggest challenge is actually the cultural shift.
Yeah, definitely. And continuing about the summer projects that I talked about when my audio went haywire here. Sorry about that again. What we did was when these 24 students arrived in June 2025, we gave them these 24 starting prompts, and we did a lot of team building, and we did a lot of stuff. It's all documented on the Chalmers University website, so you can look it up, and I can give you the link you can share. But the main takeaway was that during that summer, they produced more than 60 prototypes, software prototypes made with AI. They worked with AI, and they became extremely AI first, these students, if they weren't already. And what we then did last fall was we took these 60 prototypes and we deconstructed them into sort of what domain, what tools, what type of solution, and so on. And we realized that what they had done was give us a blueprint of how to approach many, many types of problems, many, many types of challenges in the organization. So they did not create any production level software, but they showed us 60 or more ways of how to address certain problems, and all of them potentially useful. So what we are doing now is we are taking those learnings, and we are now trying to do another summer, this summer coming up now, where we actually use students to build things that we know we want. There were a lot of unknown unknowns when we went into the summer of 25. Now we have known unknowns. We know what we want. We know how we want to do it. We know we want AI chatbots in our learning management system so that the students can chat with their course material. We know exactly what we want there. We've tried it out. We know we want a smarter campus. We know we want to use AI to help us manage and navigate the campus, for instance. So now we're going to build that and start doing it using our own students this summer.
So that's the third iteration of this project. And now you're getting into something very concrete, something production that you know you need, but you wouldn't have been able to see these without the other two experimentations.
This is the Marvel phase 3. Marvel Universe phase 3 we're entering now. So the first one was proof of concept, the second one was massive exploration, and the third one is focused implementation. That's sort of the keywords.
Would you recommend a similar approach to organizations?
Definitely. I would recommend doing explorative work, like these study circles. It's the same sort of flavor to them. I'm an extremely sort of a bottom-up person. So analyzing my own style and my own biases, I'm fully aware that my leadership style and my when I try to affect change in organizations, I tend to work from the bottom up. I tend to work with the individuals and empowering them. Nudging is extremely effective if you apply it correctly. Which also means that my method of choice is always to do something like this. And an organization has a need for both. An organization has a need for top-down in some instances, but bottom-up in others. Empowering co-workers, giving them the tools so that they can evolve. And I think that's sort of a guiding star for me, to empower the organization, to make sure that we remove as many obstacles that we can, and then let them run.
And this actually, if we circle back with what we said about even the leadership style in the military in Sweden, basically what you're sharing, the bottom up, is more or less people don't feel changed, they feel part of the change. And when I'm looking at a change process in an organization, what I urge the leaders to do is only to focus on why we're changing and maybe what we want to do. Like what you're giving the students this year is like, this is why we're doing this, and this is what. So we have identified some very concrete things that we would like out of this new, let's say, boot camp, or how you call it, but you don't tell them how. And that's where they actually come in. How they're going to reach that, it's something that they will be part of. And so I think that the approach you're sharing works because it actually gives enough freedom to the individuals to actually be part of the change and leading the change, and they don't feel change, and then they become the advocates and the pioneers, rather than feeling resistance because they feel this was leadership deciding and we haven't been involved, and I don't know why they even want us to use AI in these areas here. Some manager decided that. So let's try to maybe wrap up a bit with a couple of questions. So when you see change projects or change management, or like implementing new technology like AI right now, this is a major technological shift. What would be the single biggest leadership mistakes company makes when they approach new technologies like AI?
I don't know if it's the single biggest, but a big one is fear. Fear of our data leaking, fear of disrupting what we know and what we are comfortable with, a lack of curiosity from the top management. I've seen large corporations fully locking down all use of AI in the organization and fully sort of snuffing out this positive frustration, that powerful force in the organization. And I get it. I get it. You need to protect your data. You need to have sovereignty. We're talking about AI sovereignty now, or sort of having control of your own data, having control of the models you use. But I mean, that's a technical difficulty. It's not impossible. It can be done. We're doing it at Chalmers right now, hosting local models to do a bunch of really impressive stuff with them. It's not an excuse. It's not an excuse for stopping and saying we are going to wait this out to see who wins, if it's Microsoft or OpenAI or Anthropic or Google or whoever, and then we're going to go with that. It's not an excuse. So, and for most companies, I mean, yes, Microsoft Copilot, not that good yet. Other tools are better, but that's just a matter of time. For most companies, the AI infrastructure within the Microsoft ecosystem will be good enough very, very soon, and is already good enough in some aspects today. So there's really no excuse not to be curious and not to do experiments and try stuff out, especially for top management. They should take the first study circle.
I agree. So one of the biggest things you think holds them back, it's lack of curiosity, maybe the novelty of the technology, and they're being afraid that this may be causing, data leaks or other, they are risk, of course, but they are not impossible to mitigate. And that's like with any other technology that we have adopted. I remember there was a time when we didn't want to pay online with a card because we were afraid that people were going to steal our card data and kind of,
And some of them did. Yeah, some of them did. But I mean, if you're comfortable putting secrets in an email or storing them on your OneDrive or SharePoint server or whatever you have, the difference is not that great from using an AI tool where you have as much control as you reasonably can expect from a vendor, from a supplier. I mean, if they really wanted to sell your data, it's already sold.
Yeah,
they already have it. So it's a defense mechanism for people. to say, I don't trust this, I want to wait. And I think that people who use that type of language and those types of arguments, they really need to take the study circle in vibe coding to open up their minds a bit, because the possibilities are so huge here.
I agree. And that sounds to be a really good method for people to become familiar with something that seems unknown, seems too new, seems like, and if you just maybe scroll LinkedIn, you're going to see, a lot of posts about new tools and new versions. And then you can feel like, oh, it's overwhelming. I don't even know where to start. But like being exposed to it and do those circles will allow you to be a bit more familiar, and then you can see the potential.
Yeah.
If someone is a leader in a company and they say they have an AI strategy, or they want actually to implement AI, but nothing exists like in practice, where should they start?
With their team, with their employees. An AI strategy from the top down, again, this is my view, where they treat it as any type of, so we need a strategy for our market expansion in France. I mean, that it's not that type of strategy. It's more about a directional sort of, this is the compass, are pointing us in this direction. How can we as a company handle ubiquitous AI within 2 years, where our customers are infinitely more informed than they are today? How can we navigate that landscape with the organization and the tools we have today? What does need to change within our organization to do that? Because it's not about what's facing us today, it's what will face us in 2 to 5 years, maybe. I mean, 2 to 5 years, that's an eternity when it comes to AI development. Even though we're in some sort of bubble right now, I think, where none of these large companies are making money from AI enough to pay for their costs. So there will be some sort of reset when it comes to what you pay for stuff. Something has to break sometime. Doesn't mean that the technology breaks. Doesn't mean that the technology is not continually evolving. It just means that some business models need to change. And this exponential development, just during 1 week in March, I think there were 5 major LLMs released from 5 different companies during 1 week. That used to be a once per year event, not that long ago. Now 5 models in 1 week. So the pace is staggering, and it's just increasing and increasing and increasing. And yes, we will have sort of diminishing returns. We will have...
At the same time, you say that perhaps we're not going to see AI as cheap as today.
I mean, there will be changes in business models. There will be changes, but as I said, diminishing returns. There will be a point where we cannot improve these models using the same training algorithms, the same data, because we've used up all the public data to train the models. So what's being evolved now is more the services that are using the models. That's the new frontier. So the models themselves, the incremental improvement between one model and the next version of it becomes smaller and smaller, until you have some sort of, like when DeepSeek 3 was released a year ago, they introduced a new way of working with the model's efficiency, so that you can use less energy to both train it and also use it. And things like that will continue to happen. So if you zoom out, you will still see an exponential curve, I think, even though the smaller curves within that larger curve will stagnate, of course. And then you will have to change your center of gravity to something new. So we will see shifts in business models, how you pay for AI and what you can expect to get, because the costs are real. But we will also see much more energy efficient AI models, better services that use less energy and take less time to perform the same task, and because they want to keep the revenues flowing. Of course, these companies.
Yeah.
So I'm fully confident that we will have an exponential development for the foreseeable future. But I'm no AI expert. I'm not a tech expert in AI. But as far as I can observe, it's not slowing down.
So the time to act is now.
Yeah, or yesterday.
Or yesterday.
Yeah.
One last question. What are you exploring or experimenting with right now? Just give us like what is on the cutting edge today that you're playing with. I know you mentioned something about an open claw, tool.
Yeah.
Give us a bit of a like just 2 minutes brief on what that is, what's capable of doing, so people that are watching get a sense of where is this going, because we're like playing with these tools, but I think we don't really see how advanced they can be and where we're at, what's available now.
There is an arms race going on between the AI companies, where you take it up one level of abstraction, and the AI tool that you are using becomes an orchestrator that can put agents into motion. You might say it started with Claude Code almost a year ago now, where a developer could put agents to work for them to generate code, and it has totally transformed developing and programming since it was launched, I think, in June last year. The thing I'm exploring now is an open source piece of software called OpenClaw. It used to be called ClaudeBot, claw like a claw from a crab. But Anthropic was not happy with that name, so the creator, Peter Steinberger, he changed it. It exploded and went viral in late January, so a few months ago. And it's basically a small piece of software that you can run on a computer. If you have I have a Mac Mini running it, or you can use a Raspberry Pi or whatever computer connected to the internet. The software is always running. You give the software access to one or more large language models. You can use your ChatGPT account, you can use your Anthropic account, you can use local models running on the computer. Doesn't matter. It's agnostic. You also give this piece of software channels to communicate with you as its user. I'm using iMessage, I'm using Discord and Telegram. But you can use whatever channel you want to communicate with it. Mine is called Jarvis because I'm a Marvel fan, and it also has a heartbeat. Every 30 minutes, it tries to figure out what should I do next. So it doesn't wait for me to prompt it, and then it has a bunch of personality files telling itself what its personality are and what tools it has access to. And if I wanted to, I can give this piece of software access to my bank account. I can give it access to my smart home. I can give it access to all my documents and all my emails and my calendars and stuff. And then I can tell it, okay, please make me rich. And 10 minutes later, it returns and says, I sold your car and bought some Bitcoin. And that's fully doable with this. So it's a Ferrari with no brakes. It's really dangerous if you give it too much permission, but you want to give it some permissions. So right now I have this digital assistant where I can offload whatever I want, and it will do the tasks for me. And I can also sandbox it and tell a certain task, you're not allowed to browse the internet when doing this one, or you're not allowed to do that. You're only allowed to access this file. So you have some guardrails, of course. What happened after like 1 week or 2 weeks of this in January was that Perplexity launched something called Computer. Anthropic launched Claude Cowork, and OpenAI hired the guy who wrote this piece of software, but they are putting it in an open source foundation. So it's still open source, and it's being developed with new versions almost every day. And the pace of this development is staggering. It's super fast. It becomes more and more useful every single day. And all of these sort of established AI companies are now scrambling to find a product or a service that will help a user to do this.
Wow.
And,
so this is something that it could be looked at autonomous, assistant that sits on your computer, that gets access to the tools and the system that you chose to give access, exactly as you would give access to an employee in your IT system, right? You have different access levels and different access rights, and then you would just offload more or less things to this tool, to this assistant to actually work on. And if has nothing to do, like a human being would ask, what should I be doing today?
No, it's not. You can prompt it, of course, and I do that all the time. But I see it as an executive assistant, like the CEO has an executive assistant, and that person takes care of all the mundane stuff that the CEO needs. It's the assistant is proactive. It manages the calendar. It tells the CEO, okay, you need to go now to make time for your next meeting. Things like that. It solves problems, and the executive assistant hires others to do more specialized work. And in this case, they are called sub-agents. And the metaphor is almost 100%. But the executive assistant is not a person. It's a piece of software.
Yeah, and I used to work with virtual assistants. Like my assistant would sit somewhere in the Philippines or in Japan. So it probably is not going to be very much different than this assistant sitting in a computer or on a computer and not really kind of having a not being a human being. And I just started to kind of explore with this cloud co-work, and just realized that after just to update my website, I'm writing a book, and now I'm working into a kind of a new branding for my work, and I just needed to update my website. So I would have had to actually go and talk to a developer, explain what I want, and the developer would come back with a plan, and then come with a prototype and look at it. And now I just actually recently I just said, I need to update this website, and he said, give me access to your website. I gave access to your website, and then I can actually send tasks from my phone to the computer that it's at home. And I was sitting in the car waiting for my wife and picking up my child, and I was sending tasks to Claude that was actually, I was reviewing the mobile version of my website on my phone and sending new updates to be implemented, and they were implemented while I was waiting for them. And then when I went home, I just checked at it as, hey, you have to go in this area. And then I went down and had dinner with my family, and it was working for me.
And what a time to be alive.
Yeah, exactly. And
when you can do that
from about this, right?
From your phone in your car.
Exactly. So we were excited about this, and I think leaders should be excited, shouldn't be afraid, should experiment with it, should take and I know you also consultant and advise organizations, and you also work as a consultant. So if they want to get a kind of your personalized approach and your personalized advice, they can also reach out to you, I believe, and they found you on LinkedIn and on the Chalmers directory. But thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you for sharing. We are way over time, but it was so interesting, and I hope it added value to the viewers, and we appreciate your insights and look forward to monitor and see what's happening with this year kind of boot camp in the summer with the students, and to hear the success story of that.
Thank you. Thanks for having me and for listening.
My pleasure, Per-Olof. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Look forward to see you on the next episode. Take care. Bye-bye. Have a great Thursday.